Hi, you're here with dressage rider and coach Sarah Sjoholm-Patience and my personal trainer Paul Snowsell at his gym in Billingshurst, West Sussex, and we're going to walk you through some exercises to help you improve your riding. So to start you off today, we're going to do some exercises for your glutes, and particularly your Gluteus Medius, which is super important to help hold us stable in the saddle and help us use our legs independently. Paul, what are we doing today?
Yeah, so my top 3 glute exercises are, so glute bridge first of all, and then we're going to go into some clamshells, which really targets the glute medius, which is really good for stabilisation in our riding, and also we can work each side individual to make sure we're balanced. And then we're going to do some standing leg raises as well, just to work for the glute medius. So 3 basic exercises to kick things off, which is going to really help with your riding. So this is the first exercise we're going to do today with Sarah, and it's going to be called a glute bridge, and it's really there to fire up the glutes, get them nice and fired and active. So if you'd like to lay onto the mat, please, Sarah. So we've got Sarah laying onto the mat here. We're going to have her feet leg shoulder width apart. That's it. And the idea of a glute bridge is to really get the glutes working. So it's all about sending the signals from the brain to the glute area. So if you'd like to just bring your hands up just above your head there. What I want Sarah to do is just think about squeezing in through her bum and then relaxing. So squeezing in through those glutes and relaxing there. Well done. So it's a very basic exercise. We hold for 2 seconds and relax. And the idea is to take the pressure off the hip flexors and then get the glutes fired up there. So squeeze in, relax, well done. Tense, relax. So we do this for about 30-40 seconds, get them nice and fired up. 1, 2, well done. Last one. Excellent, good. Right, can you feel that area working a little bit more now, Sarah?
A little bit. For me it feels quite easy, so what would be the next progression on that?
Okay, so the next stage is we're going to go into a glute bridge. So we're squeezing in for your glutes, and then from there we're just bringing the hips up, in line with the knees there, squeezing the glutes in, dropping the glutes back down towards the mat. So we're squeezing those glutes in, pushing the hips up. So what we're looking for as well is just the heels just underneath the knees there, a nice neutral spine. Can you feel that on your glutes there, Sarah?
A bit, yeah.
Okay, so if you're struggling to feel it on the glutes, then what we can do is just always bring your toes up slightly. Does that make it slightly easier?
Well, it makes the exercise easier, but it definitely makes it more isolated.
Excellent, well done. So with the glute bridge as well, what we don't want is we don't want to overfire up through the quads or the hamstrings there. So again, it goes back to sending the signals from the brain onto the glute area there. So we tense in, hold for 2, dropping back down. A very basic exercise, but really effective for riders, especially when we go to progress later on. So we get the glutes working, takes the pressure off the hips, because in our riding position, we get a lot of tightness through our hip flexors there. Okay, stop there, well done. So our next exercise is clamshells. Clamshells work the glute medius, which is really important for riders for stabilisation in their riding position. Now, if we just get Sarah into position here, so if you just lay onto your side for me, please. Now, the set-up position in this is really important. So Sarah's just laying onto her side here. She's using her elbow to rest her head on, which is just a comfortable position for Sarah, or she could just have her arm extended out in front and head down onto the mat. So set-up position. So obviously we're looking at alignment here, so it's shoulder and hip alignment that's really important, okay? So we're looking for them aligned there, which Sarah's got that. And then also, heels just in line with the glutes there, and heels on top of each other.
So how, if I don't have a personal trainer standing over top of me, how would I know that I'm roughly in alignment?
So you could either use a mirror there, or you could just look down the side of your body, hand onto your hip as well, and that helps with stabilisation. So you can feel the movement, you can feel the exercise, okay? So what we're looking at doing, once we've got this set-up position, is we're looking at firing up the glute medius, which is here. So you're just going to bring your knee up as far as feels comfortable, okay? And the heels must stay on top of each other, and we shouldn't be sitting the hip back into the exercise, so we need to keep that in line with the shoulder. So just a nice slow movement, up, hold, and then back down. So with regards to this, we may be looking at 30 to 40 seconds of the exercise, or until you start to feel a little bit of warming in the glute medius. Okay, so that's good.
Now with this one, I noticed that I'm really, even with all the training I've done, I'm still really different from one side to another. Is that normal?
So what's really important is balance in the body. So we want the left side just as flexible as the right side, and the strength the same as well. So we're going to turn Sarah over and we're going to go on to the other side now. So again, it's another side, so we need to get that position set up correctly. So shoulder, hip alignment, and we just bring those heels back in line with the glutes there. Sarah's hands on her hip there to help with stabilisation, and she's just bringing that knee up. Again, don't worry how far up it goes, don't worry if one side's stronger than the other or it's going up further than the other. This is why we do each side individually and we progress on that. So what's really important as well is Sarah's just not turning her hip into it, so she doesn't want to be sitting back into the hip, which would be this, where she's opening up through the hip to try and gain extra movement. She needs to be in that alignment, and she needs to be strong with that position. Okay. If we're looking to progress this exercise, once this becomes easy, then we can use our resistance loop bands here to add a little bit of progression. So if we just put this on, so this just goes under the feet, over the knees.
So where on the thighs do you want to have the band?
So it's just above the knees, maybe a couple of inches just above the knees there, and we just come onto the side there. And this is just adding extra resistance. So it's important that you work on the mobility first of all, so improving that range of motion. Once you improve that range of motion, then we're adding extra resistance there. That'll make the glute medius stronger as well. Can you feel that, Sarah?
Yeah, a little bit more with the band.
Perfect, and we're still, as I say, targeting this area. Okay, excellent. Right, we're going to go and add another exercise into our glute medius now, and this is going to challenge you a little bit more because we need some balance and stabilisation for this exercise. So if you stand up onto your feet, really we need a nice flat surface to do this, and if you need to come in for a little bit of support, it might be worth coming up so you can hold onto a wall next to you or something that you can stabilise. So what we're looking to do on this one is keep a nice tall posture, neutral spine, so you're just going to tilt your pelvis in, and then we're just raising that leg out towards the side there. So again, it's a glute medius exercise, working just on the outside of the bum there. Posture's important on this one, so we're looking at shoulder, hip, knee and ankle alignment there. So we're just raising that leg straight out. And then Sarah, as you can see, Sarah's just holding onto the wall here for stabilisation to make it a little bit tougher. You can just bring that hand away from the wall, and then you're relying on stability there. Okay, it's good to be wobbling there. That's what we want to do because obviously that is normal, and we should be working through the core just to try and stabilise that.
I'm really feeling this on both sides of my Gluteus Medius. Is that because the standing leg is doing the stabilising for me as well?
That's exactly that. So we're stabilising with the right side, and then we're working on the left side with the movement. And you can stop there, Sarah, because that's a lot there. Obviously, it's a tough exercise. So change sides. So we're keeping a nice posture there. Again, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle alignment. So we make sure we get that position set at the start. Again, you can hold on to a little bit of support to start with, and then we're just raising out. So as Sarah mentioned before, we're getting the stabilisation through the left side now, and the activation through the right side, and we just go so we get a little bit of warmth through the glute medius there. How's that feeling, Sarah?
Yeah, it's tougher than the other side, but I think that's because both legs have been working now.
A simple exercise, but very effective for your riding position. And as I mentioned before in our clamshells, which we did, what we're looking for here is making sure each side is even with regards to mobility and strength.
So next thing we need to work on is working on our core and our torso strength. So Paul, what have you got set for us today?
So my top 3 exercises for this are going to be hill slides, side planks, which you can work each side individually, which is then going to work on our obliques and hip stabilisation, and then Supermans as well. And I love these exercises because we can work on our pelvic tilt and stabilisation, which is going to be really effective for your riding.
Great, let's get going.
So now we're going to talk through some basic abdominal exercises. So the first one we're going to do is hill slides, and this will teach you how to activate through your lower abdominals as well. So if you land to the mat for me please, Sarah. So our set-up position for this will be a nice neutral spine, so Sarah's neck is nice and relaxed there, and her shoulders are relaxed. And her hand just comes underneath your bum, so you just pop your hand underneath your bum there and bring your legs up at a 90-degree position. Now what we want to do is eliminate any gap between your lower back and the mat. So you just tilt your pelvis to eliminate that gap there. So can you feel that position, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay, so legs shoulder width apart, and this just activates through the glute medius as well. So to start off with, what we're going to do is just drop both heels down, so they're just slightly off the mat, and then return back up. So drop both heels down, so they're just slightly off the mat, and both heels up. Now the movement is coming from the lower abdominals here, and you really have to work on that pelvic tilt to stop any arching of the back there. So we're just trying to keep that pelvis down, movement coming from the lower abs. Okay, and as you can see, Sarah's kept those legs at 90 degrees there. Now with the breathing which Sarah's doing is you breathe out through your mouth as the heels come down and in through your nose as you return the heels in. Okay, so you've got a lot going on with this exercise. It's really going to teach you how to become aware of your core, aware of that pelvic tilt position, and it's going to fire up through your lower abdominals as well.
Now, Paul, I'm feeling this a little bit through the front of my leg in the hip flexor type of area. What do I need to think about to make sure that I'm recruiting properly?
Yes, this is quite common. So what you want to do is, obviously they're very overactive hip flexors there, which again is very common in riding. So what we're looking to do is just activate the glutes. You're just going to squeeze through your bum cheeks as you do that, and that will take the pressure off the hip flexors slightly. Can you feel that?
Yeah, that's better.
Excellent, well done, stop there. Perfect. So the next exercise we're going to do here is a side plank. Now this works through the obliques. So let's get the position set up first of all. So Sarah, if you just come onto your side for me please. Now we're going to start with a half side plank and make sure we get the position right. Once we've got that strength and stabilisation, then we can progress that. So if you just come onto your forearm, and what we're looking at doing is just tucking the forearm underneath the shoulder, and then we're looking at getting your hips, your shoulder and your knee all nice and aligned there. Now once we've got that position, we're just going to place your hand onto your hip and push your hip up. So this is our half side plank position. Always trying to keep a neutral spine, so Sarah's head's facing forward, shoulder, hip, knee, all nice and aligned there. Now the reason why we work this exercise is stabilisation through the hip flexor. Okay, so position and alignment of this is really important of the obliques to keep our hips stabilised. Now breathing as well, so Sarah needs to be breathing in through her nose for 3 seconds and out for her mouth for 3 seconds, so you don't want to be holding your breath. Now to take this exercise a little bit further, Sarah could just raise that hand straight up and hold that position there. How does this feel, Sarah?
Yeah, that's good.
Good. And we don't want to be dropping the hip too far forward or sitting back onto the hip either. And the idea of this, as always with riders, is to keep the body nice and balanced. So we're going to do this each side.
So how long should I be holding this position for to start off with?
So until it feels comfortable really.
It's not comfortable.
Once you start to get a little bit of discomfort, then that's when you drop it down. Any tension in the shoulders or the back. then we drop it down. So maybe aim for a 30-second side plank to start off with. Okay? And then we're just going to repeat on the other side. So again, we're getting that position set up. Shoulder, hip, knees nice and aligned, onto the forearm and hips up. Now a little bit of a tip for this one, make sure you've got a nice comfortable mat. If you haven't got a mat, then a pillow or something comfortable under that arm. And then as we're progressing here, we're just lifting this arm up, we're controlling our breathing, and it's a really effective exercise for your riding. We're getting that stabilisation of the hip there, and we're keeping that nice and balanced. Okay, now we're going to do another core exercise, and this is called Superman's. So we're going to get Sarah into position here. So Sarah, if you just come onto the mat for me, please. Excellent. So hips shoulder width apart, knees just underneath your hips there, nice and aligned. And what we're looking for is hands just underneath the shoulders, nice and aligned. And we want the body nice and relaxed. Now with this one, we want to find a neutral spine. So to find a neutral spine, we're just going to work through the pelvis on our pelvic tilts. So Sarah's just going to arch through the back and flatten. And you see the movement here is coming from the pelvis. So we arch and flatten. As we arch, we breathe in through the nose. As we flatten, we breathe out through the mouth. Now to find a neutral spine, we arch all the way up, we flatten all the way down, and then we hold a position which is halfway between the two there. So you can see Sarah's just got that nice neutral spine, and we just hold that position. Now that in itself is a really good core exercise. So we're going to progress this. So whilst keeping that neutral spine, I'm just going to get Sarah to raise her right arm out in front of her. Hold that position. Drop that hand back down, and we're just going to raise that left leg away from the body. Hold that position and drop back down. Now while Sarah's doing this, we're going to do the same with the other arm and other leg now. While Sarah's doing this, what she's doing is really working hard to keep that neutral spine, and she's just controlling her breathing in and out of her mouth. Now Sarah, if you were to lose that neutral spine position at any time, if you start to overarch or over flatten, you just reset that position. And we go again. Now to take this exercise a step further, we're going to go into our full Superman exercise, which is keeping that neutral spine, opposite arm, opposite leg away from the body, then we draw back in, and we go again, repeat on the other side. Excellent. How's that feeling, Sarah?
Yeah, it's a workout.
And this one's all about control of the abdominals, nice neutral spine, and doing the exercise nice and slow, nice and controlled. Again.
For me, I was always taught that you were supposed to try and think about having a tray on your back, and you don't want to spill any of the water on you.
That's exactly that. So if I've got my eggs from the supermarket and I'm placing them on Sarah's back, I don't want any of those eggs to fall off or crack onto the floor, okay Sarah?
Neither do I.
Okay, excellent.
So to wrap up our basic exercises, we're going to work on some mobility to help us follow our horses better in the saddle. Paul, what are we working on?
Yeah, so mobility is really important for riders. I've given my best 3 exercises here. So a thoracic rotational one I've picked is open books, and this is going to gain movement for our thoracic spine. And we've given a lower back exercise here where we're just going to mobilise through the lower back, and then we've just got a variation on our pelvic tilt, which is going to stretch through our hip flexor, which is again really important for riders as we're in that flexed position all day when we're riding. So we're going to work on some mobility now. Now my first mobility exercise will be working on the thoracic spine. So it's just the top part of the spine here. Now this part of the spine should be the most flexible, and we use it for our rotation, which is really important in riders, especially for taking pressure off the neck and the lower back. So this is called open book. So if you lay onto your side please Sarah, get yourself into position. So it's all about getting yourself comfortable in this one. So Sarah's just going to hug the knees up as close to the body as she can. Now Sarah's on her left side, so I want her left hand just to be placed on top of the knees there, just to hold that into position, so that lower body is going to be fixed throughout the exercise. So she's in a closed book position now, so I want Sarah to breathe in through her nose for 3 seconds, As she breathes out through her mouth, she opens up the book and she lets her eyes follow her hand round, so she's getting that stretch through the neck and chest as well. So we're closing the book there, and then we're opening the book as we breathe out. Good, so an excellent mobility exercise. So what we're looking at doing here is keeping that position nice and fixed. So if Sarah was to let her hand go off of her knee there and her knee to slide back, what it would do, it would open up through her hip flexor there. So we're actually not getting a true reflection of how flexible her thoracic spine is. We're actually throwing the hip into it there. So if we change sides on this, we'll repeat that for about 10 repetitions on one side, and then we change sides. So let's get Sarah set up again. She's onto her right hand side now. So her right hand's onto the knees. She's in that closed book position. And she's just going to breathe in through her nose for 3 seconds and out through her mouth. And this is really good technique. Her eyes are following her hands round. She's keeping that knee in that fixed position. So this is just gaining extra movement through the thoracic spine, taking pressure off the neck and the lower back. How does that feel, Sarah? Can you feel that stretch?
Yeah, it's good.
And what we're looking for with regards to position is as we open up, if you can keep your hand onto your knee and both shoulders down onto the mat, that would be a real good sort of range of motion there. But what's really important is we're looking at keeping both sides even, so we're not over favouring one side when we're riding. So we've gained some movement through the thoracic spine there. So now we're going to just loosen off through the lower back. So Sarah, if you just lay onto your back for me, please. So it's just a nice comfortable position, arms out towards the side, and I like to get the heels just shoulder width apart on this one, or you can go even a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Now once we've got this position, we're going to keep those legs fixed, and we're just going to drop both knees down to the right hand side of the body, and we're just going to hold that position there. So you can feel that stretch all through the lower back, around the side of the glutes as well. Can you feel that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Now you use your lower abs to draw your knees back in towards the middle, reset the spine, and we're going to drop the knees down towards the other side. So we're just getting some very gentle mobilisation through the lower back there. It's a really nice stretch to stop any tightness building up through that lower back. So draw those knees back in towards the middle using your lower abs, drop those knees down. Now with regards to your breathing, as you draw your knees in, you breathe in through your nose for 3 seconds. As you drop your knees down, you breathe out through your mouth for 3 seconds. Good, and you just repeat this movement 30 seconds to a minute, or until it starts to feel like it's loosened up. Now to progress this exercise, you can bring both legs up into a 90-degree position, and we repeat the same thing. So we just drop those knees down towards the side, let them drop all the way down towards the mat, stretch out. As you can see, that's increased that stretch there. Can you feel that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Now use your lower abs to draw your knees back in towards the middle, reset that spine, and drop your knees down towards the other side. Now a good range of motion will be, as you can see, Sarah's shoulders are down and her knees are down, so that's a good position there. I say don't worry too much if that shoulder comes up. That's why we're doing this movement, obviously, to improve on that. Excellent. So we've just mobilised through the lower back there. So I'm just going to give a hip flexor activation and stretch exercise. So if we come up onto our knee there. Now what's important with this one is just that the knee's comfortable. So we either have a thicker mat, or we'll use a pillow or a cushion underneath the knee to make sure it's well supported. Now the movement on this one comes from the pelvic tilt. So what we're going to do is just hands onto your hips to help stabilise, and then Sarah's just tilting her pelvis up and back. So backwards and forwards. So we're just gaining a little bit of movement through the hips there. The hands onto the hips help stabilise, and she can get the feel of the exercise there. So once you've got used to that, can you feel that, Sarah? Once we've got used to that, as we tilt the pelvis up, so if you tilt your pelvis up, then we drive that hip flexor forward down towards the mat, hold, and then we come back. So we tilt the pelvis up, drive that hip flexor down towards the mat, hold that stretch and come back. So she's just feeling that pull through the hip flexor there. Now what's really important is that we're not feeling it through the glute or through that lower back at all. The position has got to come through the front of the quad, top of the quad here, through that hip flexor. As we drive forward. Good, and we're just going to change sides. So about 30 seconds to a minute on each side. What's really important with this exercise is that we are getting a technique and it's not being pushed through that lower back.
So if I was struggling to move my pelvis back and forth, is there something I can do to help make this even more simple, possibly?
So a way to make this more simple would be obviously our exercise that we did earlier on, which would be our pelvic tilt, where our hands are down onto the mat and we work on that pelvic tilt first of all. So if we've got a lot of tightness through the lower back, then if you just demonstrate that one, we'd come onto the hands and then we just work on that pelvic tilt position. So it needs to be, we loosen off through the lower back before we can gain that movement through the pelvis. Okay, so if we go back to that other stretch, so see Sarah's got much more movement in the pelvis now just because she's loosened it off. Once she's got that pelvic tilt, it's really about getting that focus on that hip flexor and driving forward. Okay, really important for riders because obviously we're riding in that flex position. The pelvis and the hip does become very tight, so it's very important that we do loosen off through there.
Thanks, Paul. That was definitely a great start to getting riders fitter. How often would you recommend we're working on these exercises?
Now, obviously, if you're not going to do these exercises at all, then even if you're managing once a week, you're going to get good progression. But obviously, the more times you're doing it, the better. So if we say aim for 3 times a week, but really it's about the quality of the exercise. It's about focusing on that technique, focusing on the alignment, the breathing, and you're good to go.
Great. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, make sure you follow our channels and like us on social media. The links will be down in the bio. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you guys. Well done, Sarah.
Thank you.